Oh, hello. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Monday Night Football strategy show. 2 games tonight. 2 fun games, too. Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and Chargers-Cardinals. For people in the chat asking, why they got booted, Jack Adams, yes, very observant. We did change the title. That will not boot you. What happened is we had to change production over. We got Matt producing this one today, so expect no bells and whistles, bare bones. But you know what won't be bare bones, Matt? The hard-hitting analysis.
No, and we got 2 games. Is this our last 2-gamer of the year?
I think it is, yeah.
I keep getting confused.
We'll have weird 2-gamers on like a Friday after Christmas. You know how they do those.
Yeah.
Like,
and the Saturdays.
Yes, right. I think this is our last Monday night doubleheader.
They've been doing a lot of these this year. I don't know if they're just trying to increase revenue. I'm not complaining. I absolutely love having 2 games. It's just like we get London games, we get 2 games tonight. It's actually really helpful, and we get more slates. So if you're playing the 2-gamer tonight, you now get 2 showdowns. We're not just limited to 1. It's actually pretty sick.
Yeah, I love it. I usually don't do well on them, but I love it.
2 games are really hard.
Dude, I've been having a good season betting DFS. I got annihilated yesterday. I had the worst day of the season, but like to the point where usually you wake up the next day and it's just a new day. I woke up and it was just an extension of the previous day. Like it sucked, man.
Sometimes you just get those. You've been having a pretty good season ahead of time, so hopefully it didn't like completely bury you, because I know you were contending in a lot of those tournaments like the Wildcat and stuff in previous weeks. You had like 3 in a row with pretty good finishes.
For sure. Oh, it's not like I was overextended. It was just, you know what I mean? It was just a bad day where you go, I'm not saying it's going to affect anything going forward, but this morning, Ben and I were commiserating yesterday as well. But you know what else?
Did you just get burned by injuries? Because I know that happened to a ton of people.
That killed me. Like my highest exposed quarterbacks were Dalton, that doesn't matter. Like that was just a loss. But Jaden Daniels was my highest exposed quarterback of anybody. One of my highest exposed wide receivers was Jordan Whittington. Also Juju Smith-Schuster. So I had a lot of Tony Pollard. It was just one of those days, just one of those days.
You can't control those injury things, especially like you didn't play poorly. So yeah, I get commiserating and stuff, but hopefully you can just like look back on it and not I had a good day either.
I'm just telling you because
I got like 50% back, which
that's good.
Daniels was my most owned quarterback as well, which is tough because he was basically just the best play on the slate at QB. But luckily I smoothed it out a little bit, but some of the guys that you smoothed it out to didn't exactly perform well either. Like that game basically failed because you want to play the other side. Andy Dalton gets benched. There's Daniels hurt immediately. So it was just kind of a weird run out for that game, which was kind of the greasy chalk game of the slate.
But we move on. Plus, what's great is we got 2 games tonight.
Yeah, and this is kind of a weird puzzle because you have sort of, at least what I think is the game everyone will probably try to play, the Ravens and the Buccaneers, and then the game that potentially gives us a lot of leverage if we can find the right player in the second game, the Chargers versus the Cardinals.
I like that game. I like both games.
Me too.
I mean, how do we not talk about a guy in J.K. Dobbins where, the prevailing sentiment was this guy can't handle a full workload. What do you have, 27 carries last game? Like came out no worse for wear. You got Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman back there. The one thing they would love to do is run the football.
Absolutely. And he's held up. I don't know if it will persist through the entire season, but luckily this is a 1-game slate. We're not trying to predict week 17 here, and he's fine. They've shown, regardless of who's out there, and that was even with, Vidal having a pretty good game, they still just use Dobbins in a complete workhorse role. So it looks like that's going to be the case. And it doesn't, they're favored in the game, but let's just say game script goes against them. It doesn't really seem like unless things get completely off the rails, they're going away from that run game, even with a deficit. So
that's the hope.
There's definitely good plays in that game, even though the total is much lower.
I like it. Plus the total came up a little bit too. And the Chargers likely missing a few key defensive players. So we'll break it all down. Happy to have you guys with us. As always, hey, if you don't mind, take a single second this morning, atone for your sins, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. We try and read and respond to all of them. I wouldn't ask you if the YouTube algorithm didn't demand it of us. It helps us. So if you appreciate this content, you think it helped you along the way, maybe you're just here for entertainment to hear Matt go on his tirades, which has been highly enjoyable. Maybe you come here just to fade everything. You always get those people. I'm here to fade. You tell me you're wasting an hour of your day just to fade? Whew. Matter of fact, Matt, someone yesterday during the show said he was unsubbing because I said I think it's dumb that players give themselves nicknames with the Montgomery and Gibbs thing yesterday. He thought I was being soft and reactionary, so he unsubbed, and we will never see him again.
I was in the chat for that. It made me laugh on the back end when I was doing stuff on The Sims.
What makes me laugh more is that people think the things I talk about talk about on this show, like, haunt us and stick with us after the show. Like, I get after and I'm just, throwing my fist up at the sky that they've given themselves a nickname, and it's really driving me crazy. But anyway, let's get into it. We'll go position by position like we always do for the two gamers. And this is just a really fun slate. I love it. The Baltimore-Tampa game is a great one, but the Cardinals and Chargers, as you pointed out, shouldn't be slept on either. You talk about this quarterback position, though. No surprise Lamar Jackson is going to be the highest priced quarterback. But at the same time, coming into this week, prior to any games being played yesterday or on Thursday, Baker Mayfield led all quarterbacks in passing touchdowns. And Baltimore, look, I don't think this pass defense is as bad as it looks on paper. No team is allowing a higher yards per attempt average than the Ravens to opposing passers. No team is allowing more passing yards per game. Only the Jags are allowing more passing plays of 20-plus yards. But also, coming into this week, it was Baltimore across the board. They've been gassed. But I've also watched all of these games, and I went and looked at tight window throws. There have been a lot of tight windows and just really well-placed balls. But you have to still like Baker Mayfield here today, even if he gets picked off 3 times or whatever it was like he did last week. It's actually conducive to a big game because you can't run on this Baltimore team. I mean, they're a straight stone wall on that D-line. They don't cough up production in the ground.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, there's a ton of reasons to like Baker. He's quietly just been good. I know people, it's the early career stink or whatever on his just profile now. I mean, he played in Cleveland with a terrible offense. Then he went to Carolina where he was basically left for dead. It's now been 2 OCs that have figured out how to use him. So I think it's just, Baker probably has some pretty good talent on the back end. Canales, and now you move to Liam Cohn. So Baker, with the weapons he has, you can't really sleep on him. I do think Baltimore has been better on defense. I haven't really dove into their week-by-week splits of what their pass defense is allowing and what their run defense is allowing. But just in general, I think the defense has been better in recent games. With that said, I think if you were drawing up a matchup to attack them, it would certainly be through the air. And you have a healthy cast of pass catchers, Evans, Godwin. It doesn't really matter. When one of them is in a tough matchup, the other one produces. We saw that last week with Evans and Lattimore, and then Godwin just had the absolutely amazing game. So he's winning through efficiency, and then if things get off the rails and you have to go to the volume route, that's there as well.
I like this to be a potential Evans game, Matt.
I love the bounce back with Evans.
Me too. And, not only that, it's odd that they haven't really used him deep downfield a lot. Like, I went and looked. How sometimes when you use PFF, like, you'll select something, but you have to select it again. Sometimes PFF gets wonky when you're looking at those, the stats. I'm sure you've dealt with that before.
Yeah.
Well, I see 5 deep attempts for Evans this year. I'm like, that can't be right. It is. He's only caught 1 pass 20-plus yards downfield. He has more than that as far as 20-plus yard catches go because of after the catch production. But, you look at PFF, Baltimore is still the number 1 ranked tackling team. Like, I think if there was a bounce back spot, it could be Evans on some downfield opportunities in this game. Bet365 still has his receiving yards at 53.5 at -110. So I like that a lot. I love him paired with Baker today. That isn't to say I'm going away from Godwin by any stretch, but I think it's a nice bounce back for Evans.
Yeah, that's pretty surprising. And we have a 10-year sample of Evans. We have a full year sample of Baker throwing him the ball. He's going to catch deep passes. He's honestly, I think, one of the better deep ball catchers in the NFL. He's amazing at contesting catches. He creates separation downfield, and he's extremely physical. So the fact that it doesn't happen to me is we deal with small samples in the NFL, and so far to this point, it has been very small. So yeah, I'll go back to Evans for sure, especially now that he's cheaper than Godwin. I mean, it's razor thin. These guys are 100 apart in salary, but it's very rare you see that. So yeah, I'm completely fine with Evans. No shade to the matchup, but I think that's where you want to attack this team.
An excellent touchdown equity in a guy like Evans too.
Yeah, I'm surprised the props are as low as they are.
Yeah, plus 140 to score on FanDuel. I thought they'd be a little bit higher too. I did hammer the over there. Absolutely.
Love that.
Let me see. Hold on one second. We had a question. Aquarius, do y'all think Baker can throw over 175 passing yards? I sure should hope so, brother.
Yeah, what's his prop? It's got to be north of that.
Oh, God. It's probably in the...
I would say like 232 and a half or something.
I'm just going to say 230 and a half. Yep. Let's see. 259 and a half.
Okay, so we're underrating him. I mean, I guess the total is 50 points.
Sure, that's good point. And you can't run on Baltimore, but and that's on
that is
Pinnacle.
An enormous total.
Wow, that's on Pinnacle too. One more thing, and then we'll dive deep into this. Joe Thompson said, I hit first place in the dime tournament, $500. Congratulations, but I can't figure out how to get the Stokastic avatar next to my name. I even filled it out and tried to pick one, and it didn't work. All right, it should work. You just try it on your phone, or if it's not working on your phone, try it on your computer. Have any of you guys in there had trouble with this? I've seen it one or two times with people having issues with it. But generally it's like, I get that question once every 6 months or so. So I don't know. I would try it on your phone or try it on your computer or your laptop, whatever. There's no reason it shouldn't work. You're just downloading and then uploading it there, and then maybe log out of DraftKings or FanDuel and log back in. That might be what you need to do. Or Matt, you know what they could do? They could just sign up on any of our sportsbook partners and get an entire month free at $99 value without having to do anything.
You should absolutely do that. I can't believe this is a deal. I was actually with some of my friends this weekend watching football, and they didn't know about this deal, but like occasionally they drop in and watch our shows. You know, they're more like casual DFS players, and they're like, is this actually a deal you guys are doing right now? And I was like, yes. We are actually doing this deal right now, and it's not going to be around forever to take advantage of it.
Anybody should.
Yes.
Like, you know that if even casual players are taking advantage of it, that it's gold. Yeah. So here's what you do. See that link in the description or the one in the chat that Jordan can throw in there? All right. Click on that. Once you get in there, any of the sports books on that page or the pick'em sites, if you're in a non-legal betting site, okay, sign up on them, make the deposit. You'll see what the minimum deposit is, and then bet that on whatever it is you want. After that bet settles, the moment that bet settles, just email us with a screenshot of the settled bet, because otherwise people try and game the system, and email us with the welcome email with a screenshot of that. Very simple process. You only have to have the most basic understanding of a phone or of a computer to be able to follow this process. Jordan, have it up on the screen, please. And just follow those steps. You're locked in. $100 value, core package, Sims, and all of the tools. Well on your way to just building better lineups, winning more money. It's that simple, man. All you got to do. And here's the crazy part. This is why Matt said it's a nuts deal. You can stack them. So if you're like, all right, I want to go on Bet365, get my $200 in bonus bets, but I also am not on FanDuel yet. Wow, $5 into 200 in bonus bets there. And I'm going to do BetMGM and Caesars. Do all of them, collect all the bonuses. You probably at that point spent like $25, $30. You have 4 months of any single sport core package you want. That's $400 value. And when you consider that you can do 2 NBA months, 2 NFL months, stack them however you want, no reason not to dive headfirst into this. So link down there, follow the simple steps. The only requirement, you have to click the claim now on that page on any of those books or pick'em sites, and you are in. Anyway, we'll see you over there. Make sure to jump into the premium Discord as well. Be crazy not to join the community, ask questions, celebrate, commiserate together, all that great stuff, and know when all of our new stuff is dropping first. All right, so let's talk quarterbacks here. I like Lamar a lot, obviously. They did get Winfield back, Cansey back on the line. Vita Vea is going to play. I do believe this is actually a good defense, Matt. And I've said it from the beginning of the season that if these guys are healthy, people will be surprised. Jamel Dean, though, is out. So that's definitely not great. But it's just hard to get away from a Lamar Jackson, especially when he's playing an NFC team, which he's lost once, and he's 22-1 career against NFC teams.
I 100% agree with you. Sometimes with Lamar, it just comes down to slate dynamics, like who can you use to get up to him. We're not at receiver yet, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there are a million receiver injuries to monitor. This is going to be a huge live before lock, late news slate, or at least just leading up to kickoff, potentially late news with the second game being a little bit behind that. But I think there's going to be multiple ways to get to Lamar. So right now, I see no issues getting up to maybe up to 50% exposure to him. In my early run of the Sims, that's exactly what I got. Don't hate it, and I'm definitely not looking to try to limit it. He's just the only quarterback on the slate that has the ability to absolutely just blow up the slate. And if you don't have him, you're dead. He's the only one that has that kind of potential. And their defense being a little bit questionable so far to start the year has helped him too. They can no longer just rely on that defense and take their foot off the gas towards the end of games. He's just kind of in the perfect setup. And right now, I mean, he's on pace to win the MVP.
It's amazing how good he's been, dude.
Yeah, he looks, I'm sure you've watched a bunch of Ravens stuff. He looks more explosive now that he lost the weight. He's running like he did in the first couple of years of his career. Last year, he was still good on the ground, but he looks dynamic again.
I think I was also just wrong about Derrick Henry. I said, I think Derrick Henry is an upgrade, but that he doesn't move the needle in a big way. He appears to have moved the needle a little bit.
I was actually kind of in line with you, and I think this was just a miss. Going from Gus Edwards to Derrick Henry, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think we both knew that they would be better. I didn't know it would be this much better. But also, Derrick Henry looks better, and clearly just being on an actual functioning offense helps. You know what I think? You know why I think I missed on this so bad? Probably both of us, because we forgot what Derrick Henry looked like on a functioning offense. How much more explosive and effective he could be when the team can actually move the ball through the air. And they're a dual threat team instead of just having guys like Malik Willis or a dying Ryan Tannehill or a Will Levis out there. I think that was our blind spot. That Derrick Henry, despite all of the mileage, is still really damn good.
And maybe whatever Matt LaFleur wanted to do early in his career, splitting him with, Deion Lewis, has helped save him a little bit because he does have a lot of mileage, but it could be worse. He was in timeshares for the first 5 years of his career, and maybe that helped save him here. But I mean, he looks explosive. He has worn down at the end of seasons. Again, it's a one-game slate. We don't care about that tonight. But I mean, he's got to be the favorite on this slate to score a touchdown. And anytime you have that, you need to consider him.
Yeah, you do. I like Lamar. I like Baker. I mean, it just going to what's probably going to be a pass first offense there, or at least against a pass funnel defense. I'll say it again. I still think the Ravens are better than we've seen in the passing game. I think they've been pretty unlucky, but it's still the area that you're trying to exploit against them. What about Kyler and just? I think Herbert's so tough to get to anymore, man. I don't think they want to pass a lot. Arizona had been better in the run game, but their run defense, the wheels are falling off over the last several weeks. Now only 2 teams have allowed more rushing yards per game than Arizona. Unless the Chargers get forced into an early hole, I don't see them trying to throw a ton with Justin Herbert. And even if they do, is this guy going to get the job done with the weapons that he has and with all of these ailments that he's been tending to since the summer?
Yeah, you brought up exactly what I wanted to. The ankle sprain, he can't scramble anymore, so you need to get it done through the air. He's playing through that. And now, I mean, this team is dead last in pass attempts per game. Even when they are down and it's maybe a short deficit, they're not trying to throw the ball. And I guess it makes sense. They're built through that offensive line. Your quarterback's hurt. Your weapons are a little less than desirable. The run game has been efficient. They've been a surprising team, especially in the win record column, with their approach. So I don't think anything's going to change. The only way I think you get to Herbert is if you're playing 150, you're playing something big. It's a 2-game slate, so you probably need to play some of him. But for those of you playing cash, for those of you playing one lineup or smaller field stuff, he is by far my least favorite option.
Yeah, mine too. Like, how do you want him over any of those three guys? It's really tough to do. Really, really tough to do.
Yeah, you can talk yourself into every one of them. Lamar goes without saying. Mayfield's been shockingly good. He has great weapons. That's how you attack Baltimore. And Kyler, for his recent struggles, still has the dynamic dual threat ability. You wouldn't be surprised if Kyler has a ceiling game at any week this season. I just don't know if we have that with Herbert.
Right. We had a question too. Can you guys tell me how to get double tight ends out of the Sims? There's a couple ways that you could try to tamp it down, but you don't want to. Like yesterday, I'm looking at the first down, and you're not going to get this every week. It's on weeks that are devoid of value. We don't have every contest loaded into the post-contest sim yet, Matt, but I'm looking at it now. I pulled up the first down, which is the 150K, massive amount of entries. Every single lineup up top in the top 20 I'm looking at now, outside of, I think, one that had a cheap Khalif Raymond, every one of the top lineups in the first down had double tight ends. From Jatavian Sanders, Jonnu Smith, David Njoku, Jonnu Smith, Brock Bowers, Jonnu Smith, David Njoku, Jonnu Smith, again, Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, Jatavian Sanders part, all of these lineups. It might not look, it didn't work for me yesterday because half the guys I had played like one snap. The Sims feeding double tight end yesterday was totally spot on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I wasn't checking every single contest, but I'm pretty sure the guy that won the flagship afternoon had double tight end for like 500K. So it's not just the post-contest Sims. When I was clicking around in contests too, I saw a lot of actual winners with that build. And it's a 2-game slate. I mean, and plus the other thing I'll say is you're building at whatever time it is in your time zone. For me, it's 9:30 in the morning. There's going to be late news today. There's a million injuries at wide receiver. There might be one that opens up. You might not even get double tight end tonight.
Right. Oh, okay. That's my fault too. It's possible that he was talking about today's slate, Matt, and I wasn't sure if this was like a, kind of post-mortem on the slate.
Oh, your point stands regardless.
Yeah. There's just simply going to be spots where the Sims are forcing that because value's bad. And if that ends up being one of the cases today, we can look too. Like Jordan, did you favorite 150 lineups? Go to tight end exposure. Yeah. So it looks like, every other lineup, pretty much every other lineup has 2 tight ends.
So and I did do some negative boosts, obviously to my detriment, which is why you don't want to get crazy with negative boosts, but you can limit the projections on these guys. You can set exposure caps, or you can bring them down with negative ROI boosts.
Yep. Exactly. So if you wanted to, Matt said it, you could do exposure caps and then you cap them. You're just not going to get that many. Bring projections down. If that doesn't work, you bring projections down. And again, you got to be careful with this stuff because, very obvious reasons if you're manually adjusting projections. But there are other ways to do it. Anyway, Jack Adams had a super chat too, Matt, before we move on to running backs. He said, $20. Thanks, Jack. Hand builder and light package sub, 3x'd my money on the main, 6x'd on the night game. Thanks for all the help. I find myself getting double tight ends for this slate. You finding the same? Okay, so multiple comments about that. Yeah, we can, Jordan, why don't you scroll while we talk running back? Scroll some of these lineups, put them up on the screen for people so they can see what we're dealing with here. And that should give us a decent idea of what some of these lineups look like. But, one of the things too, Matt, that you're running into is, so you have an expensive Lamar, clearly the best option, but also a relatively expensive Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray isn't cheap either. The only one that's discounted is Justin Herbert. And correct me if I'm wrong, he hasn't had a single game with, he He doesn't have a single game north of 13 fantasy points this year. Not saying he can't, because that pass defense for Arizona is bad. The problem is they just don't want to throw the football if they don't have to.
You're 100% right. And they're the least pass-heavy team in the NFL for a reason. It's not the way they're built. It's certainly not the strength of them. Their quarterback is playing through an injury, and he's playing with probably a bottom 3 wide receiver core in the NFL. We're trying to project moving forward, and that projection for me is I don't think it changes much. It would take something crazy, severely negative game script for them to become 30 pass attempts, 35. What would it take? 14-point deficit more? They're at 25 per game.
That's outrageous. I think, 35 pass attempts minimum.
Yeah, it would take a lot, because the efficiency is not going to be there either. It hasn't. We talk about volume versus efficiency. He hasn't had either.
Yeah. And he doesn't have weapons.
That's probably part of the reason the efficiency's been poor, and his injury, of course.
Exactly. And I mean, it's crazy to think that I'm going, man, even Quentin Johnston's going to be out today. Like, who do they have?
So that's that's maybe why you could get double tight end, or maybe why you wouldn't if these injuries shake out correctly.
Yeah,
they're going to play obviously Ladd.
They might get DJ Shark back too.
Yes, they might get him back, and then honestly, I'm not sure, because they had other players banged up in and out of the lineup too. Like Simi Fehoko was playing a lot for them, but I don't think they want him to. Like Darius Davis got hurt right away in the game. I would think he would be ahead of Fehoko. Like, to project this moving forward, I think Ladd's your number 1. Obviously, Palmer. And then who's the wide receiver 3 on the field? I think it's Chark if he can play, Darius Davis after that. And then if both those guys miss, then I would go to Simi Fehoko, who is also hurt, but expected to play.
I'm a big fan of Ladd. Like, I think this guy eventually is going to break out, but I just don't know if it's going to be in this offense. If you look at his production, he's actually been pretty good considering they don't throw the ball. I like Ladd
he's
today.
Been good.
I actually like Ladd decent amount today, Matt. With Quentin Johnston doubtful, I think Ladd could have his best game of the season.
I don't disagree with that. It's just, what is the actual output for that? And I think there's a chance it's pretty good. He also leads you to like a unique build. So I guess slate context. One of the big reasons you're getting double tight end is you have nobody between the price range of 4.9K and 7K on DraftKings. No one. And the guys in that range are Ladd, who's on the injury report, Quentin Johnston, who's not going to play, Zay Jones. I mean, is he going to play? We'll see. Palmer at 4.4 and Bateman at 4.3. You don't have any paths to this even build. So you kind of have to, like, double tight ends are the only ones that project well among the value pieces right now. And that's because you can't even play a mid-range build. You have to play like either Chris Godwin, Evans, Zay Flowers, Marvin Harrison, or you just punt. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of pushed into this because we have no one in the mid-price.
I know exactly what you mean. It's tough.
It's kind of nuts. I don't know how we don't have a single 5K receiver on the entire slate.
Well, I mean, think about it. You wonder why we're getting a lot of 2 tight ends. Why do you think Ladd McConkey is getting 48% ownership right now?
I didn't know it was that high. Damn.
You know what? Number one, the field I think is just getting sharper, but does it really surprise you that much? It's not that shocking.
It's like kind of eye-opening when you first hear it, but then, I mean, once you start looking at everything and you're like, oh, I can't play all 3 stud receivers and play Derrick Henry and Lamar. Like, I need to make a concession somewhere. And then at that point, it comes down to, like, do you want to play Will Dissly or something who's going to be on the field every single snap? Hayden Hurst is not going to play tonight. Or do you want to gamble on like a Sterling Shepard and maybe there will be a receiver that emerges because of injuries down here. But right now, we just have this projected so poorly. And again, this is a huge late news slate. Maybe it'll get better, but right now, if the slate started now, I would be heavily exposed to double tight end.
Me too. I'm going to actually just call an audible here and go wide receiver before we go running back, since we're already digging into this. Because you talk about there just not being good value, isn't it? You're right. There's not a single 5K receiver. So, okay, let's do this. Let's say, let's look at some of these cheap guys. Who's out there? Well, okay. It doesn't mean that there's nobody, but the injury news, and you put it perfectly. The injury news is huge here because, first of all, does Trey Palmer play? That sounds meaningless, of course, but would Sterling Shepard be viable otherwise? I don't know. Last week, Jalen McMillan was back, played only 14 snaps. Sterling Shepard played 75% of the snaps. Do you think even if Trey Palmer does return, now that McMillan is back, that Shepard gets that work anyway, and they just run those three receivers and Godwin, Evans, and Shepard is the clear three now?
I personally don't think that's the case. I think maybe it is Shepard leading the group because he has semi-overlapping skill set with McMillan. I don't know if it was just easing McMillan back or whatnot, but those players are primarily like working underneath slot options. Trey Palmer is a burner and he like lifts the lid for your offense. So, I mean, kind of like a parallel on the other side of this game, like Aguilar has a role. It's not going to be a 75% snap share, anything like that, but he's going to have his packages. You'll see Aguilar on the field for those field stretching plays. That's what Palmer does. So I think it kind of puts a lid on what we see from Sterling Shepard. Not that he's heavily involved in this offense anyway, but it certainly hurts him more. And I would guess his projection drops a little bit. But that's important because if Trey Palmer's out, Shepard probably is in like a 75+% route share and he's 3,400. So you certainly have to watch that. They'll also threat is like maybe they do have McMillan play more. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but a couple threats for that offense. But there's basically one of these in every offense on the slate.
I think with Tampa, you probably just have to take shots. But I honestly think I'd probably I think I would rank Shepard ahead of both of those guys, even if Palmer plays. Not by a wide margin, but I think I'd probably still put him up. The fact that he still got 75% of snaps last week, he already has a long-standing rapport with Baker Mayfield. I think he probably is just out there enough to where that 3 or 4 target game could be enough on a 2-game slate.
I agree with you. The alternatives in this range, obviously, that aren't on his team are Nelson Aguilar. 30 to 40% of snaps, probably max. I'd be shocked if it was any higher because they run so much 12. They're going to take shot plays to him occasionally, and that's about it for him. LA, I know we will talk about them, but they're probably the team that is most sensitive to late news. I just can't really tell you right now who's going to be out there, but depending on how it shakes out, maybe Fehoko or Davis are in play. That is completely late news dependent. So as it stands right now, assuming they get more players back, I think Sterling Shepard is the best. Tentatively, that's where I would put it.
And to your original point, this is why you're going to get a lot of tight end. Cade Otton's 3,600, pretty much the same price. We at least know he's going to be on the field a ton, right? Like there's a guy 2 weeks ago, well, before the bye, week 5, played 100% of snaps. Last week, he played 81% of snaps. It was a blowout. He's literally playing 90+% of snaps every week. He's out there running routes. He's going to have disappointing games, but Cade Otton's 3,600. So look at it like this. And again, if you don't want to play 2 tight ends and you want to do something different, by all means, go for it. I think what we're trying to do is just kind of explain why you're going to get a lot of them. And Matt, you did a good job, so I won't, belabor the point. But when you've got a $2,800 Disley, you got a $3,600 Cade Otton, Andrews and Likely are $4,000 and $4,300 respectively. These guys, and they're getting less ownership than the other guys I mentioned. You're pretty much just looking at these tight ends as a better version of the punt wide receivers this week who get more snaps and are on the field more often. If you look at it that way on a 2-game slate where we go, man, every team's got these wide receivers in the cellar who probably play, 40, 50% of snaps, run routes on 40% of dropbacks, and hopefully get 2 to 3 targets. You're putting all those cheaper tight ends or cheap tight ends in the same category as them and probably even a little bit higher.
Absolutely, especially Cade Otton. We just talked about all the downside for Sterling Shepard, whether it's McMillan playing back into the role he was in earlier this season. Do they have more packages for Trey Palmer, assuming he's healthy as a deep threat? Otton has no threats, 0. honestly, in the right game environment, he probably will see 100% of snaps. And in bad game environments, he's at like 85. So just super secure. And this would be, we're talking the best plays right now. So low risk, cashed up, that's your decision. If you want to make it your leverage point to play Sterling over him in tournaments, so be it. I can see that. But I don't think it's really arguable that Cade Otton is just the straight up better play right now.
Dylan Spray won the 200K play action last night thanks to the Sims tool. Being able to ROI boost and pick and choose who you want to boost is awesome. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. How about that, Matt?
Congratulations, my man. That's a huge score.
That is amazing. How many did you chop with? Not that it matters, but still, I mean, regardless of what, that is such a difficult contest to win. The Sims for Showdown have been killer. Same with NBA. Congrats, Dylan. And by the way, guys, at the top of the screen, see that tip off 24? Don't even need the promo. In the description, we're just doing so many right now that NFL or NBA through October 30th, the season starts tomorrow. If you want to get in on everything we've got for the core package for NBA, $1 $1. That link will take, now watch, if you click that link, it takes you there, even if you're just poking around. You'll see that when you click it, the promo code is already auto-loaded into it. You don't have to do anything at all. Just sign up. It's $1 for the first, all the way up through the 30th. So it starts on what, the 22nd? Starts on the 22nd. That's $1 for everything we've got for NBA. And if you ask our boy Greg Ehrenberg, who had like multiple six-figure wins with the Sims tool last year, he'll tell you it works quite well. But yeah, if you haven't done it through the sports books or the pick'em sites and you just want to try out NBA, you're like, all right, I already got NFL. Why not toss a buck in so these off days for football, I can dive in, run the Sims. Even if you wanted to run them factory settings, you're still building better lineups than you would, whether you know basketball or don't. $1, baby, $1 for all of that until the 29th. Sorry, I said the 30th, but until the 29th of October. So yeah, pretty incredible stuff there. $1, jump in. And I would say do it now. Play around with the tools. Familiarize yourself so when you jump into it tomorrow, you're like, okay, I get it. Even though it's very similar to NFL if you've been using that. Included, too, single lineup sim on top of that. Very excited for basketball to start tomorrow. Rand said that's wild how much Greg is. Yeah, Greg had a killer NBA season with the Sims last year, for sure. Lee Price, Sims definitely work the best with NBA for sure because it's the most projectable sport by far. You're right, Lee. Yep, they've absolutely worked with NBA. Anyway, Jake DeWitt said Will Dissly with the rocket ship.
It's true.
It is. It's grossly true that Will Dissly is 100% viable today. Matt, he's 2,800. Here's a fun question for you. I'm all over the map today, but bear with me. I'm still reeling from yesterday. If you're looking at wide receiver value, because it only goes down to 3K on DraftKings, and then you have similar floors on FanDuel. We can dive into that and go back and forth here as well. If you're looking at wide receiver value, where is your best wide receiver value? Sub 5K, not named Ladd McConkey, because he's clearly the best sub 5K.
That's a hard question. The best one, probably Bateman, which tells you a lot.
You think it's Bateman?
I think personally think so. Outside of Ladd, you said I couldn't pick Ladd.
I said you couldn't pick that. Yeah, it just wouldn't be fair.
Okay. It's between Bateman and Michael Wilson for me.
Okay. And Bateman's price right now is coming in at what is he? 43. Michael Wilson at 47. Then it drops from Greg Dortch at 41 down to $3,500 McMillan. It's basically just all Tampa and Chargers guys down there.
Yeah. And I mean, every single one of these has a concern. Bateman, I think, is self-explanatory. He's probably at best the fourth target in this offense, especially if that like Mark Andrews stuff we saw last week is somewhat consistent. He's out there more. He just never seems to generate targets. He's at a couple decent spots this year, which is why I would put him number one. The reason I'm nervous with Arizona is they just had so much noise in the last game. Marvin gets hurt immediately. You now have Zay Jones projected to return for this team. So does that just render this a rotation? I still would go Marvin 1, Michael Wilson 2 in the offense, but does that even siphon away a couple snaps? Because with Trey McBride being the second target, there's not that much to take away. And once you start removing some, it makes Wilson look like a worse play. So yeah, I mean, the tight ends are largely the players unaffected.
We had a question from Einsteinium too. Very good question here, asking if we're getting any running backs in the flex. Right now, I just looked at my top 20 lineups scrolling. I have one lineup in the Sims, Matt, on my first run that has, running back. So 3 running backs. Aside from that, no.
I looked at this a fair amount. You did the top 20, and I think those are going to be your highest projected lineups, obviously, when we run our Sims. Those have double tight end. It's still a 2-game slate. So as I was looking and I got closer to lineup 100, lineup 150, that's where I started seeing more running back flex. And that was because those lineups are punting more at receiver. Like one I have pulled up right now, it's James Conner in the flex with Dobbins and Henry. The receivers are Flowers, Shepard, and Wilson. So I guess, to answer the question, it depends what you're playing, how many lineups you're playing. If you're running 150, I think you'll naturally get more RB flex. If you're playing 20 lineups, I would skew more towards the double tight end build right now.
Well, let's see what my exposure is. So 150, that's 150 right there. 200. So I did 10% the first.
I'm at 25%.
Okay. Yeah. I figure I like to run it differently than what we have on the screen sometimes, just to see if, those different types of flatter payouts give us different lineups.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. At 10% to first, you flatter payout, you probably want just higher projected lineups.
So I'm looking at it now, and I have about 215% running back. So that tells you what you need to know. That's not a lot of 3 running back lineups at all.
I had more than that, like 40%, but that's a 25 to first.
Okay. So that makes things a little bit different. I have a lot of J.K. Dobbins. Hard not to like him with the workload and that price point. Him and Derrick Henry, I just have a lot. Once I get past those guys, I don't have nearly as much, man. I have a ton of Dobbins, a lot of Henry, 50-point total game. What do you do with the Tampa team now that you've got Todd Bowles saying he's going to run the hot hand and it's going to be a 3-man backfield, which, by the way, I believe him. I'm not saying Sean Tucker just takes over because Bucky Irving's been good too. But so if this game gets away from Tampa, I think you end up seeing a good amount of Rachaad White out there just as a pass game specialist. But how do you try and separate these guys week over week? Well, specifically tonight between Irving, between Rachaad White, and now Sean Tucker. And Sean Tucker's 5K on DraftKings. Rachaad White's 5,700. Bucky Irving is 5,900. What do we do?
I do not see this being a place where I try to take a stand. We have 3 really good running backs on this slate. Dobbins, Henry, Connor. Most of your lineups are giving you some sort of non-RB flex build. So Connor's coming in pretty low owned comparatively to Henry and Dobbins, at least. I would much rather just make a stand with James Conner. And then once you start dicing up this backfield, you have a 3-way committee potentially. I might rather take a shot on Kamani Vidal, and what's more likely to be a 2-man committee. Yes, Dobbins will be far and away the head of that. But if something weird happens in the game, Vidal might have better touch counts than some of these backs in Tampa Bay. And that's just the thing. You're gambling on a 3-man committee. We don't know who is going to touch the ball the most in the situation. If you force me to rank it, it would be White, Bucky, then Sean Tucker. But I don't feel super confident in that. So rather than make a bunch of bets on just the backfield, that's not even knowing whether it'll produce in a really tough matchup, I'd rather just make the bets on the 3 highest owned backs and then take some shots at maybe the receivers, the injury-dependent situations, or maybe just some low and tight ends.
J.K. Dobbins' price point on FanDuel is preposterous, $6,700. He's $400 more than Rachaad White.
I don't have anything to say. I'm probably going to play 100%.
I don't see how you get away from a ton of Dobbins unless the injury happens. The work should be there. What do you make though on FanDuel where you have Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and Tucker at these price points, right? Because they're closer on DraftKings. White is 63 on FanDuel. Bucky Irving's 57, and Sean Tucker is 42. By the way, Vidal is 4K flat as well over there on FanDuel.
That at least makes you think more.
I think so.
And if you play one of them, they don't even have to do that well at those prices, like you have one long run or one decent catch. It's more about what else is in your lineup. I still think I'm tentatively siding with players like Vidal, the explosive ability. The other thing with LA too is, what if this game stays semi-competitive? Dobbins, this team might run the ball 35 times, and Dobbins could have 27 of them. But if that's the case, Vidal might end up with 6, 7. This is a competitive game. They're 1-point favorites. So I'm actually a little more interested in Vidal, I think, than some of these Tampa Bay backs right now. We'll do some more research throughout the day, but that's where I currently sit.
I don't even disagree, really. I mean, there's 2 of them and there's 3 in Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay's got a worse matchup as well. Yes, it's a higher scoring atmosphere. So that is helpful, especially in the passing game. But, with Gus Edwards on the IR, Hassan Haskins played 3 snaps last week, but Vidal played a quarter of the snaps. Dobbins played 73% of the snaps. And Vidal was out there on some pass catching opportunities too. 2 receptions on 2 targets, had a really nice catch and run as well. So yeah, I'd probably go Vidal there just because the price is so cheap. Would you play him with Dobbins?
I think you can because of the price. It's not like a Derrick Henry situation where you're sinking $8K into a back. They're both affordable. Obviously Vidal is, but Dobbins is at a nice price point as well on both sides.
What I don't want to do is play like a Bucky Irving and Rachaad White together.
Yeah, and then have Sean Tucker be the guy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. At least if you play Dobbins and Vidal together and 2 running backs go off for that team, it's going to be those 2.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Barring injury, of course.
Yes.
It's Henry and Dobbins up top. What about James Conner in this spot? Are you worried at all about last game? He seemingly got benched.
I thought there was some injury stuff there, no?
I thought so too, but then he came back out. He lost a fumble and then didn't play again.
Yeah, he's a veteran. I would assume he has a longer leash.
Yeah.
And it's not like anyone behind him looked particularly good. Benson's still a guy they clearly don't trust. I can't believe Amari DeMarcado is on a roster. So that's about where it stands. I would tentatively project Conner at 70, 80% of the snaps. Unless they want to lose, man. You can't put out Amari DeMarcado. You just can't. It's like negligence to do that.
Any thoughts on Justice Hill?
He's interesting in the right game scripts. The problem is 3.5-point favorites. Yeah, they're on the road. They need pretty significant negative game script to use a lot of Justice Hill. I am somewhat more interested in him than even the Tampa Bay backs. But with that said, I think it's Vidal, maybe Justice Hill second, then the Tampa Bay guys.
I think Justice Hill's quite interesting. Tampa's one area that Tampa has struggled defensively. They have given up a lot of passing opportunity or a lot of receptions. I think 3rd most receptions, 3rd most receiving yards to running backs. Those samples can be noisy for sure. So I don't try and dig too far into it unless it's every single week they're getting crushed by pass catching backs. If that's the case, I'm definitely willing to look into that a little bit more. But what if this game just so happens to be one of those spots where it is highly competitive? They're playing with they're just playing in a competitive game, which is funny because the best game we've seen from Justice Hill thus far in the season was when they crushed Buffalo. So maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe it's just how they game plan this. I think he's super risky. He's one of these guys, Matt, that could completely tank your lineup, but he could also have some really big production in the passing game, especially if they're struggling on the ground. He's not a priority by any stretch of the imagination for me, but I don't hate getting a little bit of Justice Hill just because it's a 2-game slate. And these are the type of guys that generally break it and you go, God, motherfucker, how did I not have any Justice Hill?
Yeah, when we're talking large field stuff, obviously if you're playing one lineup in something smaller, tournament field, You're playing Dobbins, you're playing Henry. So when you get away from those guys, who are you going to? Most of my lineups are going to be some combination of Dobbins, Henry, Connor. When I get beyond that, I think it's going to be Kamani Vidal, then Justice Hill, followed by the Tampa Bay guys, if that makes sense. Not really too interested in just gambling on that three-way committee.
Makes perfect sense, yeah.
So I imagine I'll come in with like 5-ish% Justice Hill.
I'm willing to get burned if guys like DeMercado and Trey Benson go off. I'm not getting to any of them, not getting any Haskins. Those guys, I would hope that I end up with 0. If I get burned on that, fine. But yeah.
They're the kind of guys I might just X out. I don't have any right now, and I did not do any adjustments, and I'm very happy about not seeing their names.
Brandon Katz entering the chat with an immediate wrong statement. Vita Vea, they have already declared is going to play. But fire again, brother. We didn't close out wide receivers. So is there anybody? We talked about Evans and Godwin at the top. If you guys join late, feel free to jump back in, and watch it from the beginning. Are there any that we haven't talked? Like Zay Flowers is just always going to be viable. Dean's missing from that secondary. They did get Winfield back. He made an immediate impact in his return. They should have a better pass rush than we've seen. Cansey's healthy. But I always like Zay Flowers in this spot, but any other receivers? Because we pretty much covered Tampa. We talked about Bateman. He's a good value option. He's at least getting opportunities downfield. That's what I like about him. He might not be a high target share guy, but we see Lamar target him downfield a lot. And then you have guys like Aguilar. We talked about McConkey. Probably no Quentin Johnston today. Trying to think if there's any spots we haven't covered. I guess it's mostly just Arizona.
Yeah, it's mostly late news for most of these teams. I love Zay Flowers. I imagine he'll be my most owned receiver, probably just because I'll be a little more split between the Tampa guys. And the reason for that is you can't really play all three unless you're completely punting off your lineup and playing like a Herbert stack or something. So it's really hard to come into the slate with Zay Flowers, Chris Godwin, and Evans. For that reason, it'll probably be a lot of Flowers than +1 Tampa Bay. Once you get beyond that, I feel very poorly about most of these receivers outside of Ladd. I think the best GPP play is Marvin Harrison Jr. Projects poorly for good reason. His target share has been disappointing. He's coming off an injury. I don't think that really affects him as a concussion. But he's still expensive. Now you are reintroducing Zay Jones. I would hope that doesn't take targets away from Marvin Harrison. But this offense has not gone according to my expectations. So I'm not really sure about that, to be honest with you.
They haven't really showed any explosiveness, that explosiveness that we expected. We haven't seen any of that since week 2 against the Rams.
Yeah, I'm not sure how good this O-line is. I personally don't think it's very good. Connor's fine. Outside of Marvin Harrison, I like Michael Wilson enough. I don't even think he's like a wide receiver 2. I think he's probably like a Xavier Hutchinson kind of guy. He's probably best as like a wide receiver 4. They have like 6 wide receiver 4s and then 1 wide receiver 1. And for whatever reason, they don't feed the wide receiver 1 Malik Neighbors targets, even though that's what they should do.
How do you feel about paying for Harrison today?
Bad only because we have Zay, Godwin, and Evans, and those guys you feel really good about in that game environment, and considering they're both pass funnel defenses.
Yeah, the Chargers have some injuries on defense. Pay attention to that too. We'll see what this secondary looks like. You got a couple guys, couple starters questionable, but they're allowing 13 points per game this year, which is crazy. League low 13 points per game. Some of that you could explain away to them playing bad offenses, but they held Mahomes and company to 17. It has been a good defense. And are you shocked? I mean, look, it's not sustainable at this level, but are you shocked that they have a good defense with Jim Harbaugh at the helm? I mean, he's just a good quality coach.
No, I'm not surprised. They have some good players. They're sort of like stars and scrubs on defense.
Yeah.
But Jim Harbaugh is a talent maximizer, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which is his strength. So, no, I'm not surprised. And I think that's going to continue being the case, even with Bosa not going to play in this game.
Me too. Yeah, I would put Harrison. Would you put Harrison behind Godwin, Evans, and Flowers?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I am getting 12% right now, which I'm okay with. So it's not like I'm not getting any, but I'm getting a ton of Trey McBride. And I don't have a problem with 50 or what do I have? 50 some percent Trey McBride right now. I know you saw an elevated target share last week with Marvin Harrison going down with a concussion early in that game. But McBride's target share has been ridiculously steady all season long. You haven't seen that true breakout performance where he's finding the end zone. He's going for 100 plus, but he's clearly a focal point of the offense. He's a great pass catching tight end, and he's 5,600. I mean, what if I were to just tell you, Matt, and you didn't know, but you saw those numbers. There was no name. You didn't see the name. You just saw the numbers and the targets on the season, and it was a $5,600 price point, but you saw that at wide receiver. He's the only 56. He's the only 5K receiver there. Tell me you wouldn't have a lot of interest in Trey McBride, not even knowing who he was.
I have plenty of interest. I mean, this guy has seen no fewer than 6 targets in any game. He's yet to catch a touchdown, so he's running poorly on just red zone stuff. I think he's completely fine. He's the wide receiver 2 in this offense, and that's certainly not changing anytime soon.
He has 1 touchdown, except it was recovering.
Oh, is it the fumble recovery?
Yeah.
Nah, I forgot about that stupid play.
That was
a really funny play.
Ben had that in a parlay that week and was bailed out on a Trey McBride falling on the football in the end zone parlay, which is just great. But yeah, he had a touchdown that game. It just wasn't a rushing touchdown and it wasn't a receiving touchdown. Just fumble recovery against that Rams team when they smoked them. Yeah, tight end. And by the way, to all 800 of you watching with us now, appreciate you being with us and supporting it, the channel. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Maybe we'll even get to 200 here. McBride, Otten, it's gross, but Disley, 2,800. It's going to free up a lot. It's going to free up a lot at running back, free up a lot at wide receiver, help you get to those 2 expensive quarterbacks or even Kyler Murray if you want to throw him into the mix. How do you rank these guys? Because it's to me, it's still McBride up top. I have more Disley exposure than Otten, but I would still put Otten 2 and then Disley 3. And then between Isaiah Likely and Andrews, I'm going to have some just because it's a high-scoring atmosphere, and one of those guys could go off. But believe it or not, it's McBride, Otten, and Disley as my 3 highest exposed guys right now at tight end.
We're in lockstep there. Disley doesn't have great production on the season, and he probably won't. Again, this is a very run-heavy offense. He's not towards the top of the target totem pole, but we're removing Hayden Hurst from the offense. So it should just raise his floor. And I mean, the projection's not all that different than the min-price receivers, but at tight end, the floor is lower on pricing. So you actually get 2,800 Disley. That salary does go somewhere tonight. It's a tight price slate. So I have no problem with him. He's dusty, but he opens up things for you, and that's why you're playing him. What are you doing with Andrews and Likely? I think is the biggest question.
I'm not going to be overweight on them, but I'm going to have some. You know, they're still getting snaps. It's crazy. Isn't it crazy to see how far Andrews has fallen so quickly, though?
It is crazy. I wonder, he had a good game last week. So maybe this is just me being a dummy. I'm kind of like optimistic at this point. Like, all right, he might be back. But he still only had 34 snaps out of 68. He played 50%.
Yeah, and it was 3 receptions on 4 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown. His first of the year.
Yeah, my dumb brain is like, all right, he maybe earned more, you know.
I hear you. I get it 100%. And I want to get some Andrews. I want to get some Isaiah Likely here only because this is the only reason. Because they're in an offense that is as dominant as Baltimore's offense. Like it's just an attachment to that offense. That's all it comes down to. You know, it sucks too. You look at the game before that, Cincinnati in week 5, Isaiah Likely had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 13 yards, and 2 touchdowns. There's just no telling what you're going to get here. You're basically seeing a combined like 5 to 7 targets for tight ends between these 2 guys. And it seems to be pretty evenly split. That sucks trying to figure that out. Like, where are these 6 or 7 targets going to go between 2 tight ends this week, Matt? One of them needs to score.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially tough because Charlie Kolar played 22 snaps in their last game. He's going to handle a couple at their expense. Then you have Ricard. They run like the 21 personnel sometimes with him as the fullback, even though he's basically a 6th offensive lineman, but they're going to use him a ton of 35 snaps. So you just don't really have the ceiling you do with some other players on this slate. I would say McBride certainly is the highest. Their upside is higher than Otton's, I think, but Otton is just way safer. Disley's kind of just in his own category. It's like your salary saver. He's a completely different argument, I think, entirely. But this offense is just really hard outside of Zay Flowers and probably Bateman second. You just don't know how many snaps you're getting from anyone on a week-to-week basis.
You have no clue. Hey, you ready to build a lineup in the single lineup sim before we say goodbye?
Let's do it.
Hey, you're going to be on time for your call today.
Yeah, real shame. You should have let this go longer. I know you have places to be. I'm just kidding.
No, we're good. We're good. I just got to record a video because we were scrambling this morning. Watson's torn Achilles. When my father-in-law was over watching the Eagles game and I had Red Zone on the other TV and I saw that and I saw it as it happened. I'm like, that dude just blew his Achilles out. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Did you see Jameis Winston's in passing speech about Deshaun?
Yeah, Jameis is a wild character, man. It's hard not to like Jameis.
I thought it was a well-articulated comment for a teammate to make, and I stand by Jameis. I totally stand by Jameis on that. You have all the jerk-offs in the comments talking about how bad of a guy Watson is and how much he's getting paid. Sure, but it's not about Watson. It speaks to the character of Jameis Winston. And,
that's his teammate.
It's his teammate. It's your teammate.
They're out there every day together.
I like what he had to say.
Me too. And whether you like Watson or not, or thinks he sucks, you should be mad at the regime. They're the ones that put him out there every single play. Don't be mad at Watson. He's out there actually trying his best, you would presume. It's the coaching staff and the owners that force him on the field every single play. They're the ones that are causing your whatever pain as a Cleveland fan. And
Jameis will only ever be remembered for the
W.
let's
eat a W.
Let's eat a W, yeah.
Oh man, Jameis is the best.
I know, man. He's provided endless entertainment, endless amazing DFS lineups. That's great. And then Brandon Ayuk, that's a brutal one too. Just a tough week. I want to forget about it. Let's build a lineup here. Single lineup sim. As always, guys, included in any of the subscriptions. And if you want to get it for free, you join late, you want to get it for free, just click that link. Get Stokastic Sims free. Click it. Sign up on any of those books or pick'em sites, even in a non-legal state. 21 years or older to gamble, of course. You have a gambling problem, you should call or text 100-GAMBLER. But if you don't, any of those, sign up, one deposit, place that bet on the deposit, and then once it's done, follow those steps. You're in as many as you want. You sign up for 5 of them. Guess what? 5 months of any single sport core, $99 value. If you've been sitting on the fence, now's your time to dive in. I want to go Baker at captain, Matt. Or I'm sorry, at quarterback.
We're in the showdown mode. I have no problem with Baker.
I know.
I'll throw Evans in, make our Baker stack.
Love it. I'm going to go Otton.
All right, we have our Baker double already. I mean, it's a 2-game slate. We were going to get this. Let's throw in Derrick Henry. We need some Ravens. They're going to score points today.
All right. I will go Dobbins here, but now we're going to have to do things probably a little bit weird because this is a chalky lineup out of the gate.
Lamar's probably going to be like 40-50% owned, so it'll save us a little bit not having that.
But I mean, this type of Baker build is kind of chalky.
That's
like
fair.
Baker with Henry and Dobbins, 2 highest owned running backs, then Evans and Otton.
All right, what are we playing for?
I did large contest 25 to first.
Let's go with like Palmer then.
You want to go Palmer?
Yeah, because Ladd's going to be massively owned.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I like that. All right. So let's go.
I think we're kind of deciding between Disley and McBride.
That's exactly what I was doing. Let me just throw a defense in here. Like, let me go Cardinals or let's just let's toss Cardinals defense in here. Who cares?
I don't care.
I don't care what
we
we
need
have
to make the decision. I get it.
What's it? No. I'm going to toss Cardinals in for the both of us, so then we see what we have to work with.
Okay.
If we went McBride at flex, see, this is a good exercise here. If we went McBride at flex, then that gives us 5,300 at wide receiver. So essentially nothing. Oh, I mean, you could go Michael Wilson there or something like that. You could go Bateman. You're leaving money on the table. Probably not a big deal at all. But then if you went with an expensive wide receiver, you could go, what if we went Zay Flowers, Matt? What if we went Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews?
I have no problem with that. I was hoping you were going to go this route because I vastly prefer it to the Trey McBride side in our current build.
Okay. All right. That's good stuff.
Mark Andrews.
And by the way, Brandon Katz, I don't know why you fight these things when you're just blatantly wrong. The Bucs received some good news on Monday morning as defensive tackle Vita Vea will play versus the Ravens on Monday night. He tweaked his hamstring in practice. It was precautionary. Why do you do this, man? Why do you do this to yourself? Anyway, minus 27. What happens if we go McBride and why do you think that's such a low
because we have probably Palmer and Mark Andrews. They're both projected horribly.
True. Maybe it's because we also had Cardinals defense against two.
How much salary do we leave on the table? A fair amount. Oh, no, 200. That's not so bad. Yeah, I think it's because we have Mark Andrews.
It probably is.
I think if you switch out Palmer and Andrews, you get a much better score.
I just threw Chargers defense in here. What happens? So we have 4,000 per play or per player with wide receiver and flex. 4,000. So that probably leads us to Disley at flex.
That's fine. I think when you have Disley at flex, you can play whoever you want. And we could probably upgrade something that we already have in our lineup.
What about Disley and Michael Wilson?
I'm fine with that.
Let's try it out before we go. They're okay. 32% on my end. So we're getting closer. Give me one more adjustment, Matt. Give me one more adjustment that you think could put this one over the top.
Do you want to try Dobbins and Vidal together? The chat was asking for it, and I kind of want to see it too.
All right.
As long as we're playing large.
I'm not convinced it'll look good, but I'm absolutely willing to try it.
I agree. I don't know if it'll be high ROI either, but.
Okay, let's do this. Vidal and Sterling Shepard over Disley and Michael Wilson.
Yes. I'm not 100% sure it'll be positively leveraged either, but this is something I was actually going to do throughout the day. So I'm glad we're taking a look. I wanted to get some eyes on these double Charger running backs.
I hear you. I also just wonder if we did maybe the real play
Sterling Shepard, Jordan. Sterling Shepard.
Maybe the real play, Matt, is instead of Vidal, what happens if you put Bateman in there and you have Sterling Shepard in there? Does that look great?
Probably not towards the top of ROI, but I don't think it's bad.
I think it sims better than this one. Okay. Not bad.
That's shocking.
Yeah, not bad. Okay, so that looks good. Before we do it, pull out Vidal and pull out Sterling Shepard. Or no, pull out Vidal and put in Rashad Bateman. Let's just see. Let's see how this sims.
Yeah, we haven't even done a Lamar one yet either. We're just doing non-Lamar stuff. Obviously,
that came up nice too.
Yeah.
All right. So we got some answers. We're close. You guys should follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Check out all of his work, particularly in the college realm. Definitely do so. His Tails package over there on OddsShopper and in Discord. Come check me out there as well at Laffy_D on Twitter. Shout out to Jordan. We'll see you back here tonight, Monday Night Football doubleheader. My guess, Matt, is that we're going to have some news and things are going to be moved around a little bit once we get to that live before lock with some of this injury news about the break.
It's almost every single team. It's probably the biggest late news slate we've had so far for a Showdown or 2-gamer.
Appreciate you guys. As always, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. We'll see you back here tonight. Bye-bye.